So welcome to Yorba Linda, California. We're here in Orange County, hiking up the South Rim Trail toward San Juan Hill in SOTA circles known as S or W6 CT-230. This is going to be just about 6 miles in and out. It's just under 6 miles round trip. This trail is more of a pretty wide dirt road, and it's heavily used, very popular. You're going to find mountain bikers, people on horses, and people hiking this. So let's look at the trail we're hiking today. Pretty straightforward, just straight into the summit along this trail, and then just before we hit San Juan Hill, there's a little single track trail that cuts off to the left, and we're going to go up to the summit. So today's video is not so much about activating this summit. Over the past couple days, I've been doing some smaller activations up in the Fontana area. Hill's too small really to videotape. And on a couple of occasions, I've had people ask me if it's possible to do a VHF only activation from a SOTA summit. And the answer unequivocally is maybe. Like any other SOTA activation, there's a lot of variables, and it's up to you to research it and to determine your probability of success. So take HF for example. When I do my research for HF, I always check solar weather because I'm QRP to make sure that's not going to be a problem. But this being VHF is a whole different animal. And what I mean by that is the same influences on HF don't hold true on VHF. And your ability to activate is predetermined by a number of factors. One being how close are you to a major population center? And within that population center, are there active hams? How high are you hiking? I mean, how high above all the other terrain are you going to be? And the third one is, do you have a really good plan for an antenna? Not the rubber duck you bought with the HT, but do you have a what I call third generation antenna? We'll talk a little bit about that later. All those factor into your success, but there's ways that you can hedge your bets and make it much more probable that you're going to have a successful activation. Remember, successful activation, basically, it's 4 QSOs. So we should be able to do that. So let's talk about some methods that we can use to help us out in getting those 4 QSOs. Alright. So there's a couple things I wanted to talk about real quick before we get up on the summit. And well, we talked about some of the things you need to make a successful VHF only activation. The first one is population, and that's just the reality of it. Are you close to a regional or large population center? The peak we're going up on, San Juan, sits, oh gosh, about 10 feet into Orange County, and then you got San Bernardino County. But just a little bit north of here, we've got LA County. So today we're going to have access to a lot of people, a lot of ham radio operators. So that's kind of the first one that you need to factor in. If I'm hiking on the desert side of the mountains and there's really no big town out there, I'm not really thinking VHF, and I'm probably not going to pick that summit. And just an idea, if you want to find out has there been success on that summit with VHF, the best thing you can do is, if you're already registered as a SOTA activator on the SOTA alerts, go over to SOTLAS, and I'll put the link down in the comment section. And it's basically a SOTA site, and bring up the peak that you want to activate, and then look who's activated and look at their logs and see, have they been up there, have they done VHF, and what kind of success they had. And that'll give you a pretty good indication of what's going on. But generally you want a lot of people around you to make that work, and within that you want to know that there's a thriving ham community, because if there's not, it can be frustrating at times. The other thing I like to do is select times when I'm pretty certain the most ham operators are going to be listening. So one is on commute times. A lot of people in mobiles listening, not always listening to 5.2 the simplex channels, but there's more. And weekends. Weekends, there tends to be more ham radio operators present, so I'm listening to the air. And then the other thing is contest weekends. If you're going to do a contest weekend, the big suggestion I would have is have your grid available. Today on San Juan we're in DM13, but know your grid, because they're going to want that, because that's how they score their contest. So look that up, write it in your notes, and have it available. Use the best antenna possible. We're going to talk about antennas once we get up on top, and I kind of break them down into 3 generation type of antennas for SOTA operations. And we'll talk about the limitations of some and how some are better than others. And then consider the antenna polarization. Now, that being said, 95% of the contacts you make on VHF only activations are going to be simplex FM contacts, and most of those are going to be vertically polarized. If you decide you're going to do sideband, then it becomes kind of a mixed bag. About half the people out there running vertical polarization, half the people are running horizontal polarization. The only way to address that really out here in the field is I've got a handheld beam built by Arrow, and I can spin that around between polarization, and trust me, it makes a huge deal. The rolled-up J-pole that we're going to be using tends not to be that adjustable. It's vertical polarization, and that's kind of it. So, and then the other thing you can do, program into your handheld the regional and local repeaters, because you can, even though repeater contacts don't count in your SOTA score, you can go over and drag some of your buddies over from the repeaters onto the simplex channels to fill out your log. Now, that being said, this is my experience, and a lot of people might say, oh gosh, Mark, that's bad. If you're going to ask a ham to go from a repeater to a simplex, I typically ask them just to go over to 5.2, the calling channel, because most hams have built that into their memory list, and it's easy for them to do. But if you ask them to go over to some oddball simplex channel, they will probably maybe not show up, or tell you that they don't go there or can't go there. So make it easy on them. Just bomb over to 5.2, knock them out, get off the channel, everybody's happy. Now, that being said, let friends also know that you're headed out. If you've got buddies that are ham radio operators, and let them know that you're going to be out and listen for them. But if they're on the local repeater, get them over there, okay? Like down San Diego, I've got a core group of friends, and when I get into the area and I get on my peak, I go over to the repeater, let them all know that I'm on the peak, that I need the contacts, and could they help me out. The other thing that we make a big mistake doing, hams, is we activate on the top of the peak with our FM handheld or FM radio, and the squelch is closed. In other words, we're not hearing any static. And that wipes out a whole lot of potential contacts, because there's a lot of weak strength signals out there that are trying to get to you, but you can't hear them because they're not strong enough to open up your squelch circuit. I know it's annoying, the white noise drives me nuts, but it's just kind of like the best thing to do, because you can really hear the signals out there if that circuit's open. I can't tell you how important that is. I've listened personally to SOTA activators up on FM, people calling, and they're just continually sending out CQ SOTA because they can't hear them, and it's because their squelch is closed up. The other thing is, if you're going to go out, do this one thing, and this is really important. Put your alert up. In other words, go to the SOTA site and register the fact that you're going to be on this peak, this day, this frequency, this time. And then once you're up there, spot, or have a friend spot, because that is huge. Because if people don't know that you're on the channel and that you're active, that really hurts, especially if you're on a oddball simplex channel. Like here in Southern California, we're trying to transition away from 5.2, and we're trying to transition over to 146.58. Well, there's not a lot of people just hanging out on 5.8 listening. You got to tell them you're there, and they'll come over and help you out. But if you think there's a group of people just hanging on 5.8 all day long listening for you, you're kind of wrong. So let's dive into this topic, and this is a topic that I really didn't think about until there's a ham and his wife out there, K0NR. He's back in Colorado, and he is a mountain goat, and him and his wife got their goat purely on VHF, no HF in there, pure VHF. And I bought his book. He's got a book out there, and I'll also put I'll put that link down in the comment section. It's very well written. It's very good, and I basically have listened in on some of his videos and read his blog. And the most prevalent factor, according to him and according to me, and I think you've experienced, is height above average terrain, HAAT. Simply put, and my definition of it is my height on the summit versus surrounding terrain. And I'll add a little bit to that. My height on the terrain versus the terrain between me and the population center I want to talk to. So let's look at that a little bit, okay? And let's bring that up. Height above average terrain is probably, it's so huge, it's bigger than the amount of wattage you're using or the antenna you're using. This really it dictates if you're going to be successful or not. Now, let's agree on something. VHF and UHF is line of sight communications. Now, there's some exceptions to that, but generally that's the rule and the premise we operate under. And the fact that SOTA operates from summits is also very beneficial to the fact that it's going to more benefit VHF than HF communications. When I hike a peak and put up my HF antenna, there's only really two narrow benefits I get from that. I get a slightly lower angle of radiation because I'm on the slope, and my noise ratio for man-made noise is down. And those are two biggies, yeah, but the VHF really flourishes the higher we get up. So know this, the peaks with a lower height above average terrain cast longer shadows and basically run into more obstacles. So let's take a look at this one. This is basically my radiation pattern between here and Orange County when we activate it today. So we're up here, we're roughly almost 1,800 feet up on San Juan Peak, but pretty quickly at the 3.5 or what is it, 6.5 mile mark, I hit a 800-foot ridge of mountains down in Orange County called the Peralta Hills. And that's going to knock out line of sight communications for a little bit of a shadow in there into the city of Orange. They're not going to have line of sight of communications with me, so it's going to be problematic for me to get into that area. But once you get out about 13 miles, then again we return to line of sight communications, and we're out around Santa Ana. Now this ridge, remember, this is a little ridge of mountains and it only affects an isolated area, so it's not like it affects all of Orange County, it's just that certain path. And in looking at this ridge dies out pretty quick, so I'm pretty certain that Orange County is going to be in play today. But keep in mind that, for example, you should always take a look at elevation profiles from the mountains, because that's really the mountain you're going to be on, because that's going to tell you where you can and cannot talk to. And know this, the higher up I hike, the less of a factor those little ridges become, because the shadow they cast becomes much shorter. So if I was up on, instead of a 1,800 foot mountain today, if I was up on a 6,000 foot mountain, 4,000 foot mountain, they become less of a factor. But the closer I become to sea level, the bigger problem they become. So that's a major factor. So, and let's look at our profiles for today from San Juan. So if you look at this, okay, so let's go all the way to the bottom. San Diego's out. There's no way. I've got a huge range of mountains between me and San Diego. They're not in play today. I'm not going to be able to talk to them. But that being said, it's looking super good into the LA area. I mean, just nothing obscuring us, a few little hills. Again, Orange County's just got that one little ridge, but it's an isolated ridge. I'm fairly confident it's not going to be a big factor. And then looking out at the Inland Empire, out toward Riverside, Fontana, San Bernardino, yeah, there's some mountains out there. I've got some ridges, I've got some obstacles, but again, they tend to be isolated small ridges and peaks, so I think that area is going to be in play also. So I'm fairly confident that when I get up on this hill today, I have the ability to be heard. Now, whether I'm heard or not, we'll see. I really don't know how today is going to play out. But whenever, and I can't emphasize this more, when you decide you're going to activate a peak, find a mapping program. I use CalTopo. Run a line from your peak to where your area you want to talk to, where the most people are at, and take a look at it. And if there's some huge big mountains between you and there, that's a problem. If it's just some little isolated peaks and ridges, that's not as big of a problem. Yeah, you're going to lose some people, but not a lot of people, maybe no people, because it could be a very small area. If you're not, you got to do that research to be successful. It's just like when you go up HF, you analyze the solar conditions. If you're not going to take the time to look at our line of sight communications and our elevation profile, you're going to do a big hike and be really disappointed. Let's get up on the mountain, and we're going to talk about what I consider the 3 generations of antennas for activating. And then the plan is we're going to get up there and we're going to do both FM and we're going to do sideband. That being said, please don't get caught up on sideband, and I'm going to tell you why. I could activate this peak with a good antenna and my HT. I choose to go sideband because I know there's some sidebanders in LA, but know this, the population of this whole valley is massive, and really there's a limited number of sideband hams out there ready to go. There's some, but they're not as much as the FM people. So don't get caught up in, oh, I need a rig with sideband in it to be a successful VHF only activator. It's a factor, but not that big of a factor, and it's really not worth losing any sleep over. Today we're activating with the FT817ND, which has sideband in it. It's a QRP rig. It's 5 watts, same as this 5 watts. So don't read into it that because I'm using a bigger rig, I'm getting bigger results. It's the same amount of output as this. Let's get up there and stop this yammering, and let's get some activation stuff going. That's the exciting part. This is the boring stuff part. Let's go. Yep, so we made it. So listen, normally I don't get political on my channel because there's just no upside to that. But that being said, how many times have you gone out on activation or read the rules and it's like, we don't allow the erection, yes I said erection, of a antenna because we're afraid that the RF will interfere with the mating habits of the bunsucker butterfly. Make a huge deal out of it, kick us off the hill, won't let us put wires up in that. Then, when you're on California State Park land on a beautiful peak, you roll out the bucks and the influence. Yeah, to hell, that wasn't up here before. So to hell with the butterfly, and I guess to hell with the preservation. And as such, I guess if you're rolling with enough influence and bucks, that all goes out the toilet, and you get to put one of these up. I bet you I still can't put my antenna up because of the bunsucker butterfly, but you know, I don't know whose this is. It's obviously a RAWS weather station, so it could either be the National Weather Service or it could be SoCal Edison. Whoever put this up, I hope you get a hemorrhoid the size of a cantaloupe. That being said, I get off my high horse now. So we talked about height above average terrain. Basically, you can see it, you can talk to it. So this is the wide, expansive view from San Juan Hill. We're kind of looking this direction up toward the San Gabriel Valley Inland Empire. And then as we go this direction, right out in here, is the greater LA basin out here, then down into Orange County. So we've got a pretty good area that we're going to talk to. So I'm going to break out the gear and get ready to go, and we'll talk a little bit about antennas, and then we'll get on the air and get going. So I'm going to set up next to this beautiful weather station. It's neat. So let's talk a little bit about antennas, and when you're doing a VHF activation, you probably have an HT. If you bought an HT and it came with a rubber duck antenna, throw that thing away. Absolutely worthless. You need to upgrade that antenna almost immediately. Buy yourself a little aftermarket quarter wave, whatever, antenna. Now, you might think, well, that's kind of an insignificant antenna, but I'll bet you 10 bucks on a good weekend I could activate alone with this and get more than enough contacts. These actually do a really good job of getting your signal out, so never underestimate upgrading your antenna that goes onto your HT. Now that being said, that's kind of like what I classify as second generation antenna. You've gotten rid of the first generation piece of garbage that the company gave you, and now you got this improved antenna. Now third generation to me is you're trying to maximize your VHF range with what you've got. And I always equate things into the classification 5 watts because that's what I use. So the first one is the roll-up J-pole. And the roll-up J-pole is a very effective antenna, and I use this one extensively. And it's basically just twin lead that's cut, and this one will resonate both on 440 and 2 meters, and then it's got a little piece of RG174 on the end, and then I just connect this to my feed line. The limitations of this is, A, to get this up in the air, you either got to throw a piece of twine up into a tree or something and raise it up that way. That being said, in a lot of the national parks, in a lot of these places, the rangers will not appreciate the fact that you've hung an antenna out of their tree, so watch out for that. The other thing is you need a mast, or if you don't have a tree, so you got to bring a mast up, and there's that. So now you're hiking with the mast and the guy system or the strap down system to put that guy up. The third factor in putting one of these up is your feed line. And so now I typically pack in a 35-foot length of RG8. I don't activate VHF with the lightweight 174. It's just too lossy, okay? And it's just, I freak out at that. So I'd much rather go a section of RG8. And it's got some weight and it's got some bulk to it, so you add that to your pack. Part of that is I also use a Arrow 3-element beam. Now, all these have limitations and positive things about this. The thing I like about the beam is this. I can set this up and not be in anybody's way. I'm self-contained. I can walk around and get out of people's way, so I don't have feed line out. I don't have guy ropes out. I'm just self-contained, so I'm not creating a problem. And that could be a factor on some of these summits. Like we've got a couple in San Diego that if you set up any kind of elevated mast, they just lose it. And there's so many people there that inevitably some kid's going to run into your mast and it's going to fall over and hit Aunt Edna in the head. And then Aunt Edna's lawyer that she found in 1-800 sue you is going to be in contact with you. So I don't dig that. So I like this for crowded areas, and I really like this for just general ham activity, mountaintop activity. For this reason only, I can operate this in vertical polarization. I can operate in horizontal polarization. 99% of the time, like this, 0.1% like this. There's some guys on sideband that are horizontally polarized, and it makes a world of difference if you match polarization. So you got to do. If you're going to buy one of these, get the split boom version. Don't get the solid boom, because that thing will stick out of your pack. You'll be hanging up on trees and all kinds of stuff. You won't dig it. Get the split boom section. You're looking at about $100 for this, okay? There's plans all over the internet on how to build both these antennas, so don't feel like you need to run out and buy one. You certainly can build one of these. Do I have a preference? No, not really. Both have really neat things about them. The J-pole is omnidirectional. Throw it up in the air. I don't have to worry about pointing it, but it's limited to vertical polarization. The beam, 6 dB gain, so I'm getting like up 10 watts, I guess you could say, out the front of this effectively. But it's very directional. So I've got to scan the horizon and make sure I'm capturing people. And then I've got to talk to them about matching polarization. That being said, these third generation upgrades are really going to improve your ability to do these VHF only activations. I dig VHF. A lot of people are like, I don't like VHF. I dig it because A, it's a more relaxed environment than a HF pileup. You can sit and chat with people, get to know names, where they're at, what they're doing, how's the wife, how's the kids, where on HF that just doesn't happen. The other thing I dig about it is, let's think about this. If I come up here, this is a 1-point hill, okay, and I'm going to hand out points today, okay? Every time I talk to someone, I'm handing out points. For the technician class, or the VHF only chasers that live in the Southern California area, their only opportunity to accumulate points is guys like us coming up on VHF on the local mountains and handing out those points. So I always make sure VHF is a part of my activation, because I want to make sure those guys get in the points, okay? Now, if I'm on the other side of these mountains on the desert side, probably not. I may still try it, but I'm really not going to get any significant results. Let's get this set up and let's start making some contacts, and we'll see where we go from there. I don't know if we're going to get the 4. I hope we get the 4. I got a spot. I got all kinds of stuff to do. So let's get going. CQ, 2 meters for summits on the air. Kilo Golf 6 Lima, India, KG6LI on San Juan Hill in Chino Hills State Park. Anybody out there?
KM6 UHU, good morning.
Mike 6 Tango Whiskey, India.
QSL Kilo 6 Quebec Charlie Bravo, you're 5'9" here in Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, it's Kilo November 6, Kilo Oscar Romeo, QSL.
KI6 SLA.
Whiskey Victor. Whiskey Victor, how's it going, Mark?
LI from Kilo November 6, Delta Mike Oscar. 6 KWI.
Whiskey Alpha 6 Whiskey Victor.
AN6 JWK.
Kilo Echo 6, Mike Adam Kilo.
KG6LI, K6 KWI.
KN6 JWK.
WA9 Sierra Tango India.
K6 LDQ.
Kilo November 6 Golf Papa Foxtrot, do you copy?
K6ZMW Marina Del Rey, you're a ton of brick.
KG6LI, WA9 LTI.
Whiskey Alpha 6 Whiskey Victor. Whiskey Alpha 6 Whiskey Victor.
So we're leaving the peak, and you know what? It was awesome. I needed 4. That's what everybody needs, 4 to for the peak activation. I got 16, and I'd love to say that was through my masterful pre-planning and skill, but I got to tell you guys, it's always a joy to activate where the group from the LA, greater LA area, they're on the air. Really good group of hams. They're always there for me. They'll watch the spot and they'll come and chasing for me. But the one thing is they're tolerant of my yammering. I tend to be kind of like an old school ham. I don't like doing the you're 5'9" off to. I like names and getting to know the ham and what's up with them and stuff like that. And they'll wait and tolerate that. Most people will go, no. This guy's just going to yammer all damn out of it. But they stick in there, man. So 16. And again, that goes to the credit to the greater LA amateur radio operators. Majority of them, again, FM, Simplex. Again, in Southern California, we're trying to move everything over to 5.8, stay at 5.2. The sideband was on 144.2, which is their calling frequency. I may have to revisit that and go to another frequency. The problem with that is a lot of the hams I contact happen to be guys that are ham radio operators who are monitoring that frequency and not necessarily chasing, so it gets to be kind of weird. So anyway, that's in summary. Let's talk about it. VHF is totally doable. You just have to understand what you're walking into and take some necessary steps before it. Most of this activity today came from this mere fact that I was spotting on the SOTA site and they knew I was up there. A lot of the credit goes to the antenna too. That 3-element aero beam really works really well. I really enjoy working it. And today I had a lot of people on horizontal polarization, so I had to spin that around and basically went from not being able to be heard to S9 plus. So that's what a 20 dB difference will do just by matching polarization. So anyway, before we check out with you, thanks for sticking with me on my channel. I'm still kind of evaluating things, trying to make it a better channel than it was, looking at other channels. It's a work in progress. We'll get to it. Here's the summary of today's trail, just for you people who are thinking about hiking it. And again, this is a real easy a peak to get to. But there's some areas where it gets a little moderate, but nothing too dicey. I think where we're headed next is a mountain down in San Diego County called Viejas Peak, which is by the community of Alpine. That's going to be a climb. That one's rated as hard. So And the intent down there is we're going to go back to our standard HF, UHF, VHF, and I'm going to try to make the leap into the LA area, which would be right around 100 miles. So we're going to see if that works. Thanks for sticking it out with me. You guys take care. Get out there and activate. Operate, operate, operate. It's not about having the most newest, bitchinest rig. It's about getting out there and using it. Take care.
Yeah, well, you're showing full scale on this radio's weird meter, the commercial.
Yeah, roger that. I'm going to Mountain High, and then after that, I think I'm gonna wander off to Table Mountain and do a soda up over there.
Appreciate the activation. Have a safe hike down 73 Kilo 6, Quebec Charlie Bravo.
Hope you enjoy the rest of your activation, and I appreciate the contact. KG6LI, KN6KOR 73.
CI6SLA, hey, Mark, I'm in Cerritos. I've got you 5-9 here. How you doing today?
Alright, thanks. Yeah, just out here in between meetings, thought I'd grab the HT. This is 1 watt pointing your way. But anyway, thanks for being out there. I'm gonna head back in. I'm really glad I caught you. 7-3 from KN6 Table.